Alrighty, NFL Week 16 is pretty much all but wrapped up, and I wanted to go over all the games, kind of give an analysis on what happened within this week in the NFL. I thought that there were some actually kind of big upsets this week that we need to really go over, but at the end of this video, I'll go over the current playoff picture that we're currently seeing right now, and also look at the current draft order that we're working with. I will lightly touch on the Monday Night Football game. That is the only game to not go final yet in Week 16. You have the Saints and the Packers. And I think this one will be a good win by the Packers, at least a one-score win by at least 7 or more, I think. I don't know if they cover 14.5. That's a big, big spread. So I would stay away from that personally, but they certainly could do it. The Saints have been somewhat of a legible team this year. They've had a lot of injuries and parted ways with their head coach halfway through the year. But I think the Packers definitely win this by 7+. I don't know if I'd take 14.5. I'll briefly touch on the Thursday Night Football game. You had the Chargers and the Broncos. This was a good game. But if you look at it early on, the Broncos had a really big lead in this one, and it looked like they were going to coast to a victory. And then the Chargers rolled back behind the arm of Justin Herbert. And he's just become a really, really solid. If you look at the depth that they have at receiver, he doesn't have much. And he's been able to become a really solid quarterback within what he has. And I think this could have been, a surprise team in the playoffs, like a scary team to play, if they would have been able to keep Dobbins. Obviously, without Dobbins, it kind of limits their offense a little bit. But I thought they got a good win in a divisional game against a Broncos team that's playing really well. So that was a good victory. Moving on to the Saturday slate of games here, we had the Texans and the Chiefs. And the big talk before this game was that Patrick Mahomes was most likely not going to play in this one. And he ended up playing, and he actually had a pretty good game, 260, a touchdown. They played pretty well. I think the big story for the Texans in this one was losing Tank Dell to a gruesome leg injury. I mean, you could see how bad it was right away on some of the replay angles. If you haven't seen that yet, go check it out. It's one of the worst leg injuries that I think I've seen. It's bad. And his leg, it sucks for a guy that is a young wide receiver that had a bad injury the year prior, so obviously that shifted momentum when he caught that, it tied the game. They got the game within 1 point. He missed an extra point after the momentum of that play, and they just never really recovered from that happening. But the Chiefs are 14-1, and they're rolling. They're 8-0 at home, and we'll see how it continues. Steelers-Ravens was the other game, and the Ravens, they really took control of this game. As I continue to stay with the Steelers, when they don't have Pickens, their offense has limitations. He's a really big part of what they do because they kind of just lack receiver depth, and they need Pickens. Russell Wilson didn't have the best game. That pick six really turned things in the other direction, really kind of changed the game for the Steelers. And the Ravens just were able to take advantage of that, and they got a good win. And we'll see what happens in this division because you have a really tight race right now. It's going to be interesting. Going on to the Sunday slate, you had the Giants and the Falcons. This was expected. The Giants do not want to win another game. They're going to do whatever they can to not win, and the Falcons take the lead in their division. There's really not much to say about this game other than the fact that this gives them the lead in the division because remember they have the tiebreaker against Tampa Bay because they beat them twice. I thought Bijan Robinson had a good game. Michael Penix looks pretty good. Now, you cannot take that much away from this game, though, because it is the Giants. But Michael Penix looked good in this one. Lions-Bears. The Bears have just given up on this year. They want the best possible pick at this point. They look like a mess. They need somebody to come in who is going to really flip around that program. I think Vrabel would be the perfect fit for this team. He'd be a culture changer. They need that. I don't know if you can hire an offensive, just young coordinator guy. I think they need somebody that's proven, but we'll see what they end up doing. The Lions, even without David Montgomery and some of their depth, they get another big, big win. and we'll see. I still think they're going to run into some issues in the playoffs without having David Montgomery because they're running out of depth a little bit. But if you look at it, they're finding ways to win games and dominate games, and that's all you can really ask for. Going on to the Browns, Bengals. The Browns, also a team that are kind of looking to tank right now, and DTR is just not going to be the answer in Cleveland. And I think that's been known for a while, but he's just not. He's just not ready, and probably will never be ready at a high level. And if you look at the Bengals, they have a path to the playoffs now. Jamar Chase obviously having a great statistical year. Burrow having a great statistical year. Still think he leads the NFL in passing touchdowns and passing yards. And he's had a really solid year so far. We'll really see if they can beat Denver next week. That's a big game. Big game. Moving on, we had the Titans and the Colts, and Jonathan Taylor went crazy in this one. 29 carries, 218 yards, 3 TDs. He had some big breakaway ones, and he had a really, really solid game. They actually had a huge lead in this game, and the Titans got it to within one score, and they had a shot at one point to get the ball back and win. But if you look at it, the Titans, they have a lot of problems with them, and they need to correct a lot of these issues, or it could get bad in future years. But if you look at the Colts, probably not going to make the playoffs this year, but they do have a solid offense. It's really going to depend on what they want to do with Richardson at the end of the year. That's going to be a big debate. Rams-Jets, this game was close for a long time. Jets got off to an early lead, then the Rams built it back, and then the Jets just kept biting themselves in the foot. At this point, you had a muffed punt. You had Rodgers was strip sacked. You had a lot of just issues they ran into, and the Rams took advantage of that. Now the Rams, they lead their division, and it looks like they're going to be in the postseason. I think they'd be the 3 seed in the NFC right now if it ended, and that's as good a spot as you can say for the Rams, a team that I don't think people had that high of expectations for going into the year. I had them winning their division. I just figured that they would find a way to turn it on and win it, but they turned it on, and I think that defense, it's a young defense, but I think they're getting a lot better, and I think there's a lot to hang your hat on if you're them, for sure. Eagles and the Commanders, probably the showcase game of probably the entire day of Sunday yesterday, where the Eagles had this one wrapped up, and then Jalen Hurts got hurt, and Jaden Daniels found a way to lead them down and win this game. I will say he wouldn't have had that opportunity if Devonta Smith didn't drop a wide open slant route that he just dropped. If he makes that catch towards the end of the game, this thing's on ice. It's over. And that really cost him. And he's as sure-handed a receiver as you have in the NFL. I'm surprised he dropped that. But Jaden Daniels, you got to give him his props. Because every time in that game that he had to make a play, he stepped up and made it. On one of the drives, there was like a 4th and 11. He ran it. He figured out how to do it. And the last drive, 10 seconds left, delivers a great touchdown, just march them down the field. That's what really good quarterbacks do. They're able to, when you're trailing with a little bit of time left, you're able to go down and get a big win. And I thought that was really impressive. And I think that he should probably win Rookie of the Year at this point. I think he's done enough. They're in the postseason. I think he's certainly done enough. And if you look at the Eagles, you got to really take some time to look at Jalen Hurts' health. And I think it's just a concussion, like a minor concussion, but we'll see as the week develops how intense that is. Cardinals-Panthers, an overtime game where the Panthers got a win for the first time in a while. They had played a lot of teams close prior to this and just not been able to get a good win. If you look at the Cardinals, eliminated from the playoffs, and they had a lot of talent, but they just weren't consistent enough this year. And I think they really got to take some time, work through stuff. Marvin Harrison Jr. has to tone some of his stuff as well. Kyler Murray has to build a better repertoire with him. And they got to really have a good year next year, because I think it's next year is going to be a big season for a lot of the faces in Arizona. But it's a good win for the Panthers. Bryce Young, he got smashed on some of these plays. I don't think that he's going to be able to sustain a long career in the NFL with his size, because he was just getting crushed out there on some of these plays. And I as I said, I give him props because he's looked a lot better. But he's one bad injury away from this, this getting pretty ugly. So we'll see what happens with that. Minnesota and Seattle, great game, really close for a long time. Justin Jefferson gets the huge walk-away touchdown towards the end, and they just find a way to get a good victory against the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks is going to be tough for them now at this point to make the postseason. There's still a path. But if you look at it, I thought Geno Smith played a pretty good game. We weren't sure if he was going to play due to a knee injury. He ended up playing. But this Minnesota team, they're starting to look for real. 13-2. Sam Darnold's looked really good this year. We'll see how far they can go. Bills, Patriots, I really don't have much to say about this one other than Drake May is a hit for the Patriots. He played really well. But as you see, Josh Allen, the Bills, looked a little bit worse. They had played in a dome the previous 2 weeks, and I think that going into the snowy environment kind of got them in a position where they didn't play as well as they had been playing to this point. But they still got a good win. It's a division game. Snowy game. Patriots are tough to play. I think you don't really take much. I don't think you really take much negative away from this. It's a division game. It was snowy. We've seen these games before, and that's pretty much all that I got to say with that. Jags versus Raiders. If you look at it, you had two really good. I think the main story in this game, what we wanted to watch, was two really good young receivers in Brian Thomas Jr. on one side, Brock Bowers on the other. Both delivered. Both had really good games. Raiders found a way to win this one in the end. I think this is a bad win for the Raiders if you look at it, because now, as we'll look at the draft standings, this hurts their position pretty majorly. So I don't think this was the right move for them to win, but, that's where they're at. 49ers and Dolphins. The 49ers they've just fallen apart this year. It's a lot like that 2020 season. Miami, not dead yet by any means, but they need a lot to happen. But yeah, there's not really much I have to say about this game other than the fact that the 49ers, it's Brock Purdy, he should not be paid. He should not be paid $50 million a year, and I think that's pretty clear after this game and after the season that he's had with what's been going on. And then you had the Sunday Night Football game, a shocker, honestly. Huge upset, in my opinion. The Cowboys find a way to beat the Bucs, and they just played up to their standards. I think Cooper Rush is playing a lot better. I thought CeeDee Lamb played really well. But if you look at it, the defense of the Cowboys, they just stepped up and they played a really good game. Bucs, they're going to have to, Atlanta has to lose another game for them to get in. So now they don't control their own destiny. So we'll see what happens with that. Moving on to the playoff picture currently that we see, and obviously you have the Chiefs. Lions still control the byes. The Bills and Eagles at the 2 in their respected conference. And if you look at it, what we really want to look at is the wild card situation. And you got the Colts right there, you got the Dolphins right there, and the Bengals. Obviously, the Bengals are going to still need a lot of help at this point to move up, but they have a big game against Denver. Watch out for that game. So the AFC, there is some wiggle room there. Then if you look at the NFC, you have Tampa and Seattle, and I think the big reason that Tampa is still in this debate and Seattle is they could both still win their division. I think the wild card's pretty much set in stone at this point, and that's pretty much where you have it. Going on to the draft order currently, Giants would be 1, Patriots, Jags, Titans, the Browns, then Vegas, and As you can see, that's bad. And if the Giants somehow win another game, they would also go below Cleveland because Cleveland lost to the Giants and the Raiders. So it's tough for the Raiders, but yeah, we'll see how this shakes up. My Week 17 picks will be released tonight because we have the weird Christmas schedule. And yeah, I'll see you then.